Brendan Bradford, CodeSports AU across the Tasman, and it just gets better and better and better. I'll be fascinated to see the Australian reaction to that Warriors win. Is that the standout result of the round or what?
Oh, game of the season so far. Hands down game of the season. Has had everything in it. And I reckon one of the probably top 10, maybe top 5, top 10 best Warriors wins of all time as well. Like, just to come back from that, the resilience with the weather and everything going against them, against a really good Shark side. And to see Shaun Johnson performing really well, just what a result. What an incredible result. I'm still sort of buzzing from it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, now do you start to believe? Because every week it's getting better and better, isn't it? You know, the North Queensland game was one that I think shocked most of us to think, hang on a second, beating them over there, keeping them scoreless like that, you back that up with a real arm wrestle, and you've got to grind out wins in this competition. Did that against the Dogs. And then to come back from a deficit like that, 20-0 and then 26-6. As you say, against a good side, that's the difference. This Shark side is good.
Yeah, spot on. And like you say, every week is sort of getting better or showing something else, or just making me believe a little bit more. And after conceding 3 tries in 14 minutes, I got that feeling that I think every Warriors fan has had for the last sort of 3 or 4 years, like, oh, this again. But as soon as Wade Egan scored in the 21st minute, I thought, okay, we're still in this. Like, there was still that. It felt like they had the belief that they would come back, even though they went behind by 20 points again. It just felt like there's something in this team, the way they were playing, even just the way they were carrying themselves. It felt like they were never out of it, no matter how far behind they were on the scoreboard. And I just think back to the corresponding game last year, Sharks at Shark Park. It was around May, so almost exactly a year ago. Sharks went down to 11 players. They had 2 players in the bin at one point, and we didn't even score.
That's right.
And I think actually the Sharks scored, and they ended up putting a score on the Warriors, and it was pretty embarrassing, to be honest with you. And just the turnaround, and the belief and the passion, and just everything, all those sort of intangible things that, you know, when you sort of talk about, they seem a little bit wishy-washy, but you know, when it comes to putting it all together out on the field, this side is actually showing it.
Look, there's a determination there now. Is it Andrew Webster? Look, we're quick to hack the coach. I mean, we saw it in English football overnight. You know, Chelsea dumped theirs after, 14 games or something. You know, Brendan Rodgers is out. You know, and a Leicester City side that won a title 6 years ago could end up getting relegated. So we're quick to heap on the coach, and normally for the right reasons. But this time you've got to hand it to Andrew Webster. Even when he's afterwards, he's asked. I love the fact he doesn't get overboard. He doesn't kind of tend to glamorize anything, does he? He just talks about the most basic things. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just instilling the confidence in the players to say, hey, look, you know, if you actually want this, you can have it.
Yeah, spot on. I think, you know, I'm usually a little bit hesitant to put too much on coaches. I mean, because on the flip side, say you look at the Tigers and how much of that is Tim Sheens' fault. I mean, they're just a rabble at the moment. And how much can you put on the coach? But in the Warriors' case, I think Andrew Webster is massive. I don't think you can actually oversell how much of a difference he's made. And I think he's just got that, not only the experience from the Warriors as a side and as a club and how it works from his past time there, but also in what makes a team work at the Panthers. What are the ingredients that go into a super successful team? And I think he's been able to mould those 2 experiences. And just talking to a couple of people last week in the lead up to this game, you know, people that know Shaun Johnson were saying that as soon as Webster was announced, like he sort of changed his whole. He knew what Webster was going to bring, and you know, over the off season, I think we probably spoke about how physically fit Shaun Johnson was looking, and just how just seemed happier, and we thought, well, maybe it's just being back home, but. Just talking to a few people last week, it's the Webster effect. It seems like it's coming through, and you saw in his I don't know if you've seen Shaun Johnson's post-match interview.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah,
on Fox, just you know, that emotion, that joy, that passion, just coming through, just brilliant to see.
Brendan Bradford with us. We're talking league. We're talking the NRL round. I'm just so glad that it happened on April the 2nd, because if it had happened the day before on Saturday, April the 1st, I'd be sitting there going, somebody's playing with us here, aren't they? Somebody's here. It's a joke.
Yeah, 100%. I have to admit I got sucked in by a few of the sort of social media posts going around early on Saturday. I think it was the Blues put up a score thing on Instagram saying that they drew 3-3 with the Chiefs. That got me right, and I was like, geez. But yeah, you couldn't write about it. And they said they were talking at halftime. They were down by, I think, 14 or something like that, maybe even more. And they were sort of talking to each other at halftime, just saying, imagine if we pull this off. Like, this is one to tell the grandkids about. And they bloody went out there and did it. I can't believe it.
A couple of other topics to talk about. We'll come back to the Warriors, Brendan. I've written down many notes. Have the big boys begun to play? I mean, Penrith and the Storm both laid down statements, I thought. I mean, the Panthers put on 50 in Canberra. The Storm against a tough Rabbits side. Is that just them flexing a little and saying, don't forget about us?
Yeah, I think after about 5 rounds, I think you start seeing the trends and the strong side sort of emerge. Like in the first month, everyone's sort of fresh, everyone's fit, and it's that kind of competition that any team can beat any other team apart from the Tigers. But after about 4 or 5 rounds, you've got injuries coming in, you've got head knocks affecting teams, you've got suspensions. So that's when it's the good teams with good systems, with good depth, start to show out. And I think, yeah, we'll start to see the Panthers come out. We'll start to see the real Storm come out. Munster back, Pappenhausen back probably soon. And on the flip side, the Dolphins have got a few injuries, so we'll probably start to see them struggle a little bit. I think, like their A side, the best side that they could put out, can beat any team on their day, like they did in the first couple of rounds. But it's the grind, like you say. You got to grind out wins in this competition, and that means a full 30 squad of depth plus some if you really hit. And that's where I think the Dolphins will start to feel reality bites a little bit over the next coming months.
Yeah, I mean, they scored a couple of tries late on, and about a 38-12 beating to the Dragons, who had just shipped 40 points in the previous 2 games. I mean, wasn't the same Dolphins side we saw in those first 3 rounds. But it's the same Broncos side. They're the only one that's gone 5-0, and they put West to bed like they should have put them to bed. How legit are they?
Yeah, I think the Broncos, everything we've seen from them, it's not that they've had any sort of big sweeping off-field changes, but it just feels like, and maybe it's just a rejuvenation, or I'm not going to put it all down to Reece Walsh going back to the Broncos, but something just feels like there's a spark up in Brisbane this year. Maybe they were sort of jolted by the introduction of the Dolphins, but everything they've shown, they've put scores on the Tigers. They ground out a win against Penrith. They ground out a win against the Dolphins. They've shown they can win in various sort of situations. You can't knock them. They're doing really well, and I think that's good for the league as well. I'm not a Broncos fan by any stretch, but something a bit weird seeing them sort of languish at the bottom of the table like they did for those couple of COVID years. So it's good for the comp, and I think the Broncos are legit this year.
Brendan Bradford, CodeSports AU is who he is. Joins us every Monday to talk about the league. That Sea Eagles Knights match I watched, mate. Well, Jeff, I watched, mate. What? That's nuts. 6 tries each, and then it goes to extra time. They can't separate. A couple of things about this. Jake Trebojevic, every team needs one of these. He's never the biggest bloke on the field, but he plays like he is, doesn't he? The biggest heart in the place. I think he was 80 minutes and just a defensive colossus in that. He's one of those guys, like, I mean, I go back, you go back through years. I go back to a guy called Gary Larson that used to play for Norths and Queensland. Just an absolute workhorse that, they call these players. But what a giant he is.
Yeah, just every week, just every week does the same. He'll make between sort of 40 and 50 tackles. He'll miss very few. He'll do his work on attack as well. He's him and Tohu Harris, sort of similar kind of styles. Like I think I saw Andrew Webster talking about the gap between Tohu Harris's best game and his worst game is tiny because he's just so consistent and consistently good. And that's Jake Trebojevic. And as much as we talk about Tom being sort of the make or break factor behind Manly, I think if you lost Jake Trebojevic out of that pack, out of that side, I think he'd have a pretty big impact as well. I think you'd start seeing it in results as the season goes on.
Look, I know I'm a Grinch, mate. I like the draw, though. I don't have a problem with the draw. And I know that Bulldogs and the Cowboys were the last game, and it gets thrilling, of course, down to the Golden Point. But I kind of always feel gutted for the team that loses in Golden Point because it seems to me like it's such a lottery. But I know it's been and gone, and I'm an old boomer, and I know that it's past and it's locked in now. But I still find something about finals football. You have to separate teams. To me, it's like if every game in the English Premier League was a draw, ended in a draw, and they had a penalty shootout, you'd kind of lose the drama of that shootout. And I was happy with the 32-all draw in the end. I thought these guys have fought themselves to a standstill. Why can't you just have a draw?
I kind of see where you're coming from. I think if you can't separate them after 10 extra minutes, then there's a draw. Fine. I always just feel I like the drama of extra time. I would like them to see them introduce what they have in NFL, similar to what they have in NFL, where it's not golden point, but it's golden try. So If you kick a field goal, you take like the Bulldogs, you take a 15-14 lead, but you keep playing. But a try stops the game. A field goal, you just keep playing. You still got to play the 10 minutes and see what else happens. But I'm
You're sold?
Am I a millennial? I'm not sure what I am, but I like the drama of extra time. Gen X, Gen Y, I can't remember.
Yeah, look, I understand. That's why they did it. What a crackerjack of a round that started with the Roosters and the Eels and ended up with the Bulldogs winning here in Golden Point yesterday. And it's Storm Roosters coming up on Thursday. It's just, and I think the Warriors are the ingredient that is going to provide this competition this year with something extra. Because I don't know as I said right at the start, Brendan, what the reaction over in Australia is. And I wonder whether or not it's going to turn against the Warriors if they become too successful. Because I've always had this paranoid thing that, they're allowed to be good, but just not too good. Like they're not allowed to get, But this is a team that is second in the table at the moment, mate. 4 wins out of 5. And when you look at the draw, they aren't gimme wins. They're good wins, and they're wins away from home at places that other good teams are going to go to and not win. So, it's buoyant here. It's worth celebrating. I hope that Australia picks it up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen over the last week, since the Bulldogs win, that people are starting to take notice. I think we mentioned it last week that you start winning and you start getting, into the top 8 and the top 4. That's when people start taking notice and writing about you and talking about you on TV and on the radio and things like that. And I've seen that there's a big spread. I saw Sean Johnson in the paper the other day. People are starting to take notice of the Warriors after a couple of years of, and I think this kind of filtered down too. When they relocated to Australia, and it was good vibes, which was cool because it kept the competition going, and it was great, and there was a big sacrifice. But it kind of felt like after a few months or a year or so, it's kind of taken for granted a little bit. And it was like, okay, yeah, you made a sacrifice, but we're kind of forgetting about it, and it was, I don't know, it didn't feel the same. It didn't feel like the same kind of coverage. Now there's a bit of hype, there's a bit of excitement. And it's been a while since we've been able to say that about the Warriors.